this topic about picking the right stuff, choosing the right brands, curating your menu, it's a lot. It's not one thing that will specifically make your store successful because how you do it, because there's like 1,000 different things that goes into curating a menu. And I would like to kick it off just about kind of about how we do our thing. And it's a mix of science, calculation, esoteric stuff, spirituality, and it's not just we follow a certain formula. So first and foremost, we look at brands, right? We look at their social governance, we look at how they grow, we look at different stuff. Do they irradiate? Do they do all these different things, right? And a lot of that has to play with it. That's more the scientific stuff. And a lot of the other things are like a business spirituality kind of thing. Do we feel good carrying these brands? Would our customers resonate with that as well? And yeah, that's kind of how we do our little bit of our picking. And the other side of it is that every store should be able to allocate certain dollars to certain categories to be able to pick and buy that. Every week we do this. I don't really talk too much about this kind of stuff because this is the secrets. The game should be told, not sold, right? Or sorry, the game should be sold, not told. So, anyways, yeah, going back to the inventory dollars for certain categories. If you're over that the next week, you shouldn't be buying that category. If you're under it, bring that stuff in. If you're out of a product, you're losing money. If you have too much overstock, call that LP and tell them to buy it back. No, I'm just kidding. Like, don't do that. But yeah, I'm gonna throw it over to Mr. Craig and tell us how you do your thing out in London.
Okay, so I'm a small store. These gentlemen are giants compared to me. So like he just said, I am triaging my inventory often. Like there's probably a couple stores in here similar to Mindset. I am low on vape carts this week, and next order I'm going heavy vape carts. I am lacking ounces. Sorry, 18 people this week, I don't got you. And that's sort of the reality of my game sometimes, but I've abolished almost every company that had a initial public offering. They stole from the Canadian citizens about $40 billion, and they're giving nothing back in terms of value, in terms of stock. They're gone. If their millionaire is making 20 times what the rep in my store is making, they're gone. I don't need the big companies anymore. My margin is phenomenal, and I'm playing Moneyball. Like, I'm bringing in the item that's going to make me the 1.8 return instead of the item that, no disrespect to a bunch of you in here, a lot of your menus are boring. It's the same items 80% of the time, and you're selling it for like a 25 to 29% margin, and you're fighting over scraps. I've abolished that. I've stopped doing that for the last 13 months. I'm grabbing items that nobody else has. The OCS is now 14,000 SKUs. We're above 5,000 different individual items. There's so many things, and there's so many great craft growers that nobody's bothering to bring in. And if you bring them in, you can sell them at whatever, not whatever margin, but a margin that's a lot better than 25 to 29% scraps.
Nice. Yeah, that's super important, especially from a small town too, right? I'm going to move it over next to Mr. Northern Helm, Mr. David. So tell us how, as a multi-store with, I think you said 6 stores, how do you guys do your thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a position where we definitely recognize that there's a lot of people that are smarter than us in this space, a lot of people that are smarter than us in this room. So we've been pretty fortunate I've been fortunate since being in cannabis to work with people that are a lot smarter than me, some of them sitting over the table there, but also learn from people at events like this, like, oh, when you're talking about the 5,000 on the menu. Yeah, we don't need to compete head-to-head on products. There's no point in competing head-to-head on products directly across the street. Katie, you made the comment about we need to make sure that we stay nimble, and I think that's something that we can all fall into the trap of just trying to be uniform across the stores that we have, but it's leveraging the fact that you need to look at each individual product on a weekly basis by store. And I think we're very fortunate that the team that we have, we are trying to stay small in the mindset of looking at every category, looking at every product and how it's moving, and not sitting back on the inventory that is getting old. And if we're not listening to our customers, we're failing pretty fast. So much of the same strategies is just taking it to a couple more doors.
Yeah, and that's important, especially being multi-chain. Like you guys got to operate agile, nimble, and it's even that much harder because 6 times the gain, but 6 times the losses. 6 times stuff is staying there, So, my good friend over here, we're gonna move on to next, Mr. RAJU from Piffingtons, 3-store operator. How do you do your thing?
As a long-term smoker for 20 plus years, I have a real kind of different standard for myself for high-grade quality cannabis. And I try to use those characteristics that I feel that embody good weed. And for me, building great relationships with LPs and keeping them honest is a big part of it. And I'm sure we all have had situations with LPs when you're buying products and the first batch is great and the second batch isn't the greatest, is to continuously kind of have that open communication with the LPs to make sure, for one, they're doing their job and we're doing their job for them, because at the end of the day, we're the representatives. But when it comes to picking good quality flower and products, a lot of it comes down to my customer relationships that I've created with them, as well as my bud tenders. There's certain things that I've learned during the purchasing in the first year where I had to come to terms with is that, my taste and what I like isn't what the masses may always want, and to really be intuitive of what their needs and wants are. Some people in the industry or customers are using it for medical purposes, some using it for recreational. Even though we are retailers as rec, we still have an abundance of individuals that are coming in for products that are used for day-to-day use. So you have to take in consideration where our body is our temple, and if we're putting good stuff in, good things are going to happen. If we're putting products into our system that are, radiated, or they're using fertilizers that are chemical-based and more not natural to what the flower needs and wants, then that's also going to be a bad effect in the long term for the consumer. For me, and our slogan at our store is high grade only. And obviously, we can still find budget products at a good price point to combat some of those bigger LPs and so support those micro growers at a good price point. For me, that's one of the main things that I try to focus on when selecting new products even, is that I ask the LPs to give me a product sample. I make sure I share it with my team to make sure that they're on board as well with it. Because at the end of the day, I can't sell at all 3 of my stores. They're going to sell it for me. So they have to be on the same page that I am at. And if they don't like it, best believe it's not going to move. So you can bring the best weed in, but if it doesn't resonate with your team or your customers, it's just going to be money sitting on your shelf. So approach it for myself is always go with your gut on good quality flower and see what your customers say and go from there.
And I think that's such a huge point, though. The team's trying it out and being, I don't want to say bought in. It's more that if they have a trust in a product, that goes almost to an immeasurable. It has an immeasurable impact on customers and how they're feeling about the products. And it's kind of funny when we look at the OCS surveys of what customers are looking for. That brand always ranks really low, but quality ranks really high. But then nobody can actually define what quality is. So that is an indicator that individuals walking into the store are looking for the bud tenders to be able to tell them what quality is and trust that those people know what quality is. That's huge.
Yeah, and especially, the one thing is common here, business spirituality, right? We care about what we're selling our clients. And it seems like a lot of people, this is what Steve Jobs did. He started with the customer and he worked his way backwards, right? So we, like being especially a hardcore digital company like how we are, we search all over the internet. I'm pretty huge on Reddit, right? So we kind of figure out, okay, this is kind of what we start off with and we bring that way backwards. So, what inspires you, Greg, for bringing in a certain SKU? Like where does your journey start as a retailer to buy and then bring in?
I go on the OCS and I price high to low. And then I grab all the items that no one else has bought.
That's good. Cheers for that. Cheers for that. OCS must be loving that. So, yeah. Dave, how about you? Where does the journey start for you?
I think there's the point that you made at the start. There's the science and the spirituality. Ultimately, we've got to have the team members excited about it. So that could come from somebody coming into the store asking for something that we haven't had in before. That will trickle down to the team members. So there's definitely a push and a pull. But then by the same token, again, we've got people on the team that know the industry and have tried almost every product on the OCS. So leveraging their experience too. So we come at it from both sides and recognize that if we're not needing to compete with a hyper low cost player, that is a much better thing. And chances are we're fitting what our customers are actually looking for based on the way we have our stores laid out. We're not sitting here claiming that we know what's best for anybody else. We are just trying to continually improve on what we're delivering.
Nice. And you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'll add to my point because you made me think of something. I don't like just buy the most expensive stuff. I try everything. So if I'm bringing in any company and I've never had it before, I want to see what their best is, and I want to try one thing, give it a sample, and I always let all of my bud tenders buy at cost. We're barely making a living, a bunch of bud tenders, so it's data points. Like can't always trust the customer's opinion, but at least I know my 3 other bud tenders, their opinion is valuable to me, and that's data points. So I don't bother making a profit off my employees. They are providing me something of value to me because, yeah, there's too many items. It's cost too much. All of my money would go to this to try things, but there's something to just quality. Like I go to Rocket Factory. I want to see their grow. We're surrounded by flower, and these companies are letting us walk in and potentially see it.
Crazy.
So
That's
can
important.
do the due diligence. Like if these companies don't let you walk into their facility, what are they doing that they don't want you to see?
What are they hiding?
Yeah, that's huge. And there's no charge. It's going to cost you gas in a day.
And I think just to talk about us, how we're super huge on new drops. We're all about the newest fire, bringing it in. Even like back in the day, we got the hottest fire, the hottest heat. So we actually start off with going to OCS's wholesale portal, clicking on that new products, downloading that sheet, and then making our selections there. I think a lot of people got to really use that tool because they do have all those data points. In fact, they have too much data points. And some LPs are not trying to fill that out. But luckily, OCS makes it. So I think starting off with that sheet, downloading it, splitting a column to say, here's what I'm going to buy. Because you guys already know the brands. I think that's really helpful because we have the pricing. And, with all these new products coming in, I want to bring up another point we're going to talk about, which is OCS flow-through. So I'm going to start again just at the RAJU this time. How do you deal with flow-through?
Well, flow-through is obviously a tricky thing if you're not familiar with it. Obviously, looking at the data on how the velocity of a certain product moves should be a good indicator of how much you would need. I always would say to keep a threshold of about maybe 10 to 15% overstock of that product, just to make sure if you're having a great week with that particular product, you can have a little bit of extra of that particular product or strain or brand to be able to move it for the next reload. When it comes to LPs and dealing with their products, sometimes it's a little difficult, at least in my case, where I've ordered products and I've been short shipped, and to find a replacement for that after the fact I've already placed my regular orders is a bit challenging. But this is the important part for the LPs being on flow through that want to transition over, is that those guys that are on flow through technically are in the doghouse until they make it enough to get into a regular listing. So that's why it's very important that if you are going to be using flow through, making sure that those brands that you're bringing in and the products you're bringing in are going to both have an effect on your company, but as well as the LP's growth as a whole. For me, I've had the opportunity to build relationships with a lot of great LPs. One particular one in the house today, which is Northern Canada. And, kudos to those guys for everything that they did in the last 2-3 years. They really amplified the quality and standard of flower. So when I see their product on a regular listing or on a flow through, best believe I'm going to support them to make sure that they can transition to a regular listing so I don't got to wait 2 weeks no more. So for me, that's a big part of it, to making sure that I help those guys that I need to be on a regular listing to support them into the process of getting them from an actual flow-through product to a regular listing by supporting them week in and week out.
Multi-store flow-through.
I actually think flow-through for smaller groups like us is a huge advantage. I think the flow-through, as much as it was a big change from the standard listings, this is the best thing that happened to all of us in this room, because we have the ability to be closer to our stores and be closer to the products coming in than the larger chains, where they're needing to say, okay, well, this area has too much inventory and I actually can't bring it in. If we have that lower inventory, we have the ability to bring in those products on flow through and differentiate. So we've certainly been fortunate with that. And again, we put a lot of time into this, as I know everybody does. And there are certain stores in our network that they are very health focused based on the customer that's around there, and other stores that are less so. And with flow through, it allows us to bring in a pretty wide selection and move it around. So I see flow through as a benefit compared to being in coffee or in grocery prior to cannabis, and then compared to doing retail in cannabis out west. having one supplier and having one delivery date, that is a huge advantage of being in Ontario. We're very lucky from a retail perspective. We don't have trucks showing up at 8 p.m. on a Friday night that we didn't know were coming because there was no schedule to when that delivery was happening. So having flow through and having a little bit more flexibility, we're quite happy with.
Yeah, and Craig?
We differ. You said one thing in the pre-talk about sorry, brain fart. I think a lot of our products are like stocks. I don't think we're just buying a retail item. I don't, because my mindset is, I have this. I'm the only store that has this. If you want this, I can charge this. And it's not like a t-shirt. It's not a same commodity. It's a couple guys in an area that's obscure that put a lot of heart and effort into this special product. And I really do think of this as stock purchasing sometimes and not just as a retail item. I know my return can be this much on rosin, and because of that, that's going to yield this much of a return. And because I'm the only one in the market with that item can sit on my shelf for as long as I'm the only one with it, and whatever price I want, because I'm the only one with it. And I know that seems greedy, and I know that seems heartless, but that is the game for a small store anyway. I don't have the ability to move any of my product around, and I don't have the walking traffic. I don't have anything other than the specialty of the items in which I'm buying. And that lets me yield a return that's keeping me afloat and paying my employees, paying my landlord.
Yeah, I feel that. And part of the thing about flow through, everyone, is that we got to explain what that is to people. So, you know, we're huge on digital. The first thing I did was I typed in flow through on Google. And here's who popped up. OCS, which was just an article, wasn't a shop. Ghost Shops at the time. And they were explaining, Colin did an amazing job at explaining that flow through. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to create an article, optimize it, create a category with all the flow through products, and then right there, we became a top flow through store in the province, right? So like, there's these little things that we got to kind of think about, because I remember asking OCS, hey, what is flow through? Is it two separate words? Is there a logo for it? Not too many people understand that. We tried secret menu, we tried all these different things, but the good thing is that OCS.ca, they don't have the full menu, right? You can't go online and just get flow through stuff on there, which is great. And a lot of, you know, it's a hit or miss thing. And we got to really encourage LPs to embrace flow through. They don't like the fact of this, this, and this, because a lot of stores said this and that, right? I tell these guys, flip the switch on, put your product in, we'll buy it, and then when you're out of it, flip the switch off. It's real simple. And right now, we even got LPs who flip the switch on, sell half, flip that switch off, and that goes exporting to different countries or certain things like that. So it's very, very flexible, because the time their launches with their grow opportunity schedules, it's just so difficult to kind of manage, but it's good that everybody is kind of embracing flow through. This wasn't the case a couple years ago.
Not even close, to be honest. And I think a lot of people were scared of using flow through just because they didn't understand the logistics aspect of it, when they're going to get it, what they may receive, and if they may get short-ended, right? And those are growing obstacles that we're going to face in the industry. That's only, very small right now, right? 5th year in. And, for us, again, to what you were saying, in the versatility of the menu, the other thing you have to take consideration with flow through is that OCS does not sell anything on flow through. And obviously, OCS, as strong as they are on the e-commerce side, there's still customers that like to kind of have conversations about those products that they're purchasing that they really don't get there. So if you could bring that additional edge of products that, again, your neighbor's not carrying because maybe they're not intuitive of a certain brand or a certain product, or a certain product that affects them for a therapeutic use, then guess what? You're going to have that edge on most of the competitors around you. Is that the diversity of what you have on your menu really speaks to your heads, right? And depending on the target market you're kind of going towards, you can really focus in on those guys.
Yeah, and you nailed it. It's just like, we're all here today because we get it. There's a purpose for all of us being here. There's stores that aren't here that don't even understand what they're missing out on. And it's like, that whole flow-through concept, it shouldn't be hated on. It's a JIT system. This is logistics.
Embrace it.
Yeah, we got to embrace that. We got to get our LPs on board. And yeah, you're right. Maybe one day they will flip over to general listing, and good for them. or they just strictly say flow through because it's more even flexible for them, right? So, and the other kind of topic I want to drop is, you know, how else do you guys, kind of like, I mean, I was gonna say.
I guess another thing that we can kind of talk about today as well is just as independents, and to kind of tell you guys that, you know, we're all in this together, and don't feel like you can't ask your neighbor or your fellow retailer as well too for advice and support. I've always been happy to help and share information on certain things that I do as a retailer. And, you know, obviously we're all in the same game for making money, but we also have to understand that together we're that much stronger when combating certain, you know, obstacles ahead of us, and we can all do that together.
I just want to, everybody give a round of applause for Jazz for putting this beautiful thing together. This guy, really special. He taught me something that's very important, strength in numbers, right? And we're on the brink of changing a lot of things. There's a lot of things happening at the province. They need this help. They don't really care about an industry like that. We got to bring these problems to them. I had a conversation with Canada Post today. Maybe parcel happens. I have a conversation with Normal, which is an old lobbying group, tonight. Maybe we're going to get 30-gram limits removed. So there's a lot of different changes happening. I know some people talked about vinyls, right? The vinyls have been an issue. We had one of our people in our group that got hit, right? And because this person went in, he didn't see any vinyls. So, you know, what we're doing here is I consider is alchemy, right? It goes beyond just creating a fire menu and using flow through. It's like we're doing alchemy here, guys. This is ancient stuff that we're continuing on. There's a reason why we're doing all this. So I just want to give a huge, huge thank you to everybody. Is there anything else you guys got to say?
All piff all day, baby. Let's go.
All piff all day. Stay high, stay happy, everybody. Nick, Montrose, thank you.